Hey guys, welcome back to YPW, the home of all things professional wrestling. Make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed to the channel, make sure you turn on notifications, as we are releasing new videos. From her arrival in NXT, to her rise in WWE that helped spark a revolution, to her legacy that is already cemented in stone. Join me as I tell you the story of Charlotte Flair. There are many dynasties in the world of wrestling if you know where to look. There are so many people who are born into the business. People like the McMahons, the Rhodes, the Ortons, and more. And sometimes a series of events lead to some forsaking their birthright, only for them to come back and do what came naturally. You know, second nature. And that very much defines the life and times of the woman you know as Charlotte Flair. You can't start with Charlotte, also known as Ashley Flair, because that's her real name. Rather, you need to start with her father, Ric Flair. Ric Flair is an absolute legend in the wrestling business. He was the 16-time world champion and held the title that much because he was one of the best in the world on the mic, in the ring, and everywhere else. He was the nature boy. And he lived that lifestyle even into his latter years, and even to this day. Flair was a force of nature, pun intended, and he helped many promotions get over the top because he was that good. But while he was great in the wrestling world, in his personal life, not so much. He had multiple children with multiple women, and his relationships with them haven't always been the greatest, even with Ashley. In fact, she didn't want to do wrestling because of her father, but later did it because of her brother, who wanted to do wrestling more than anything, but couldn't. Flair was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, to Ric Flair and his then wife, Elizabeth Harrell. She has an older half-sister, Megan, and an older half-brother, David, while her younger brother, Reed, died on March 29, 2013. Flair won 2 NCHSAA 4A state championships for volleyball during her time at Providence High School and was team captain and player of the year in 2004 to 2005. She attended Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina, playing volleyball in the 2005 and 2006 seasons, before transferring to North Carolina State University, where she graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Public Relations in spring 2008, while also being a certified personal trainer prior to becoming a wrestler. Flair was ringside for the December 6, 2004 episode of Raw in her hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina, where Lita and Trish Stratus competed in the main event for the WWE Women's Championship. Almost 12 years later, on July 25, 2016, Flair herself and rival Sasha Banks would do the same, marking only the third time a women's championship match main evented Raw. But more on that later. Ironically, her first time in the world of wrestling happened early in life in a rather funny way. In 2000, Flair made her first appearance in professional wrestling at the age of 14, appearing with her father in World Championship Wrestling, WCW, as Ashley Flair during his feud with Vince Russo and her half-brother David. On the May 15th episode of Monday Nitro, Flair appeared in a vignette in which Russo, David, and Daphne invaded the Flair family home until being confronted by Flair, her mother Beth, and brother Reed. At the Great American Bash on June 11th, Flair was at ringside for a retirement match between Rick and David. After Russo attempted to interfere in the match on David's behalf, she and her brother Reed attacked him and handcuffed him, enabling their father to go on to defeat David. On the following evening's episode of Monday Nitro, David and Russo faced Rick in a handicap match with the Flair family once again at ringside. Flair attempted to interfere on her father's behalf, but was restrained by R&B security, Russo's henchmen, allowing David and Russo to defeat Rick and partially shave his head. Don't worry, he grew it back, and Ashley/Charlotte would get to be a big part of wrestling in the future via a major brand that was coming. It was just going to take a decade or so to get there. You see, in the wrestling business, there are many developmental brands that help wrestlers get to where they need to be professionally before they get to the main brands. The indie circuit is another name for it, and it works. For Ashley, her timing couldn't have been any better, because by the time she decided to be in WWE, they had just rebranded a major show called NXT, which would become one of the most important brands in WWE. But back in 2012, they didn't know that yet. For the longest time, WWE had a developmental brand called FCW, and the matches there weren't televised. NXT was originally a competition show for younger talent, but it didn't really register with fans. So they remade it into a full-on third brand within WWE, and they filled it up with the rising stars that they could find, and that included Ashley, who was rebranded as Charlotte Flair and became one of the first females to work for the brand. At first, she started out as one of the lower-tier ladies of the brand, and she had no real experience before WWE/NXT, though she proved she was a natural talent. She then allied herself with other superstars to become the BFF, Beautiful Fierce Females. As NXT started to grow, many of their superstars got called up to the main roster, including the then NXT champion, Paige. With the title vacated, there needed to be a new champion, and Charlotte had proven herself enough to win the tournament that came from that and became the new NXT Women's Champion. For the next 258 days, Charlotte reigned strongly as the champion, including fighting off several of her lifelong rivals in NXT, such as Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Bayley, who would call themselves the Four Horsewomen later, a tribute to the Four Horsemen that helped revolutionize the business, and her father Rick was the leader of that group. Flair's matches were always high quality, and her NXT TakeOver matches against Banks, Bayley, and the Fatal 4-Way that included Lynch are still fondly remembered to this day. While she did eventually drop the NXT Women's title to Banks, it was only because bigger things were coming for her and her fellow horsewomen. You see, while the NXT Women's division was one of the strongest women's division around at the time, the one in WWE wasn't at all. The Divas, as they have been known for over a decade, were either not very talented, solely eye candy, or weren't given a lot of screen time compared to the men. For a while, this didn't matter, as the fans were more than willing to just stare at the women and the various things that WWE made them do. But eventually, they realized that some of these women wanted to wrestle and to be known for wrestling. The fans started a movement, #GiveDivasAChance. And this got WWE to realize they needed to do something big. So thus, they looked to the very powerful NXT Women's division and called up Banks, Lynch, and Flair to help bring the women's revolution. The intent was simple, to show the fans that they really did care about these women, and that they were going to give them the respect they deserved, and then some. Almost immediately, the impact was felt, as 3 different women's factions were made, and they went to war with one another. Eventually, Charlotte was granted the #1 contendership for the Divas title, which would lead her to fighting Nikki Bella for the title twice. After some shenanigans the first time, she won the second match to become the Divas title. She would hold on to the title until WrestleMania 32, where she was scheduled for a triple threat match against Banks and Lynch, where the Divas title was rebranded as the WWE Women's title, a true showing of the faith the WWE had in the new and improved women's roster. Charlotte held on to the title for some time, until her rivalry with Sasha Banks caused her to lose the title, but then win it back, then lose it, then win it back. It was a curious rivalry. But it also resulted in the first ever Falls Count Anywhere match for women on the Raw roster, as well as the first women's Hell in a Cell match that truly helped solidify the women's division as it is right now. As if that wasn't enough, the two ended their rivalry, for the moment anyway, in a 30-minute Iron Man match, only the second time the women had done it in WWE history. Sasha Banks and Bayley were the first via NXT. Flair won it and became the 4-time women's champion. What would follow for the next few years can only be defined as a period of dominance and championship gold. She competed in many high-profile matches on both Raw and SmackDown, including becoming the champion of both. She even represented both Raw and SmackDown as their champion in various matches, including getting a clutch win for SmackDown during a particular Survivor Series by beating Alexa Bliss. She's been a heel, she's been a face, and she's worn more women's gold than anyone in modern WWE history, including now being a 10-time women's champion, and she's technically still young in her career, as she's only 33. Yet, if you watch her go in the ring, you'd think that she's one who is at least 10 years younger. Flair had many memorable rivalries. We've already mentioned the one with Sasha Banks, but she's also had many battles with Bayley, including losing to Bayley to give her the Raw Women's title, and she was famously and infamously the one who unintentionally helped birth Becky Lynch's now famous persona as the Man. As Becky was tired of Charlotte getting all the favoritism, leading to an epic clash between the two that made Becky Lynch the champ when they battled at the women-only event, Evolution. Despite not being the main event, her and Lynch went to war in a last man standing match that was voted by many as the match of the year. The success of her wrestling career, as well as her lineage, has led to many perks, including being part of TV shows and movies, being in various commercials, being one of the big name brand stars of WWE that has earned her a lot of money, and even meeting her fiancé, whom she is engaged with right now. The only real problem with Flair is that WWE has a tendency to oversell some of their athletes, and Flair is no exception. While it's true that she had some very long reigns as champ, it's also very true that she had some incredibly short ones, including losing her title mere minutes after winning it in one case, and her 10th reign as champ lasted mere days. The WWE was clearly trying to make her the all-time champ, like her father had done once upon a time, but they rushed it and fans aren't pleased. What's more, in January 2020, Charlotte Flair won the 3rd ever Women's Royal Rumble, which many felt was the safe pick and not the right one, which later led to an incredibly obvious storyline where she would go and challenge NXT Women's Champion Rhea Ripley for the title. Still, despite these flaws, Charlotte is still one of the best women's wrestlers on the planet, and no one can take that away from her. She'll beat you with a smile, a woo, and some flair. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at the career of Charlotte Flair? Do you remember watching her back in NXT? What do you think of her time on the main roster? Which of her reigns do you think are the best? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and thank you for watching YPW, the channel dedicated to all things wrestling. If you like this video, make sure you check out some of our other videos, and to be notified when we release new videos. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until next time.